You walk out to the gravel driveway in the morning, and there they are, little green tufts of grass and weeds pushing up through every crack, every joint, every gap in the gravel. You walked it clean just 2 weeks ago. Today they are back. By next week they will be ankle high, and by the end of the summer they will have taken the whole driveway back from you if you do not do something. And the fence line behind the barn is worse. Sticker bushes, vines, sprawling grass weaving right up through the wire, every one of them needing to be hand-pulled or sprayed or cut down before the whole place starts to look neglected. So you drive to the hardware store and you stand there in the herbicide aisle. Bottles of Roundup, $15 to $30 each. Bottles of glyphosate mixed with Diquat for $40. Bottles of long residual soil sterilizer that promise a full year of nothing growing for $45. And the man behind the counter tells you these are the only things that really work. So you walk out with a bottle, you spray it, and 3 months later the weeds are back, and you are spending another $45. And every spring, for years now, you have been laying out $200 or $300 on commercial weed killers, and the weeds keep right on coming back. Now I want you to sit with this. There are 6 honest old methods of killing weeds, methods that careful farmers in this country used long before any commercial herbicide existed, that cost almost nothing, that work as well as the bottles on the hardware shelf for most every job, and that the weed killer companies have no reason on earth to teach you because there is no money in a single one of them. My grandfather killed weeds the very same way Esther's grandmother killed weeds, the same way the careful farm folks have killed weeds for 150 years, and every one of those methods still works today exactly as well as it always did. My name is Elias Yoder. I am Amish, and I farm here in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. Today I am going to walk you through the 6 honest methods. The pantry vinegar recipe. The vinegar and salt mix for the fence lines. Boiling water straight from the kettle. The propane flame torch. The newspaper and mulch smothering for the bad patches. And the plain old business of pulling them out by hand after the rain when the soil is soft. All 6 of them work. Each one fits a different situation, and knowing which one to reach for is the whole of the skill. I will be honest with you about the bold words in the title. Folks will tell you, stop them for good. The plain truth is, there is no honest way to keep weeds from ever coming back in this country, because the seeds blow in on the wind every spring, and the birds carry them in from the next field over. But these 6 methods will knock down what you have, keep your fence lines and your driveways clear for a full season, and save you the $200 a year you have been handing over at the hardware store. That is the honest math of it. Now let me show you how it is done. Stay with me. The first method is strong vinegar plus a little dish soap. Now the plain pantry vinegar from the grocery store is only 5% acetic acid, and that is not strong enough to do much against an established weed. What you want for serious weed killing is what they call horticultural strength vinegar, 20 to 30% acetic acid. You will find it at the hardware store or the feed and garden store, sold in gallon jugs for $15 to $20, and 1 gallon treats a great many weeds. Here is the chemistry, plain. Acetic acid at 20% or higher draws the water right out of the plant tissue, breaks down the waxy coating on the leaves, and burns the foliage within hours. On a hot, sunny day, you will see the weeds start to brown within the first hour, and be completely toasted by the end of the afternoon. Purdue University Extension tested this carefully and confirmed an 85% kill rate on the above-ground weed tissue at all growth stages, with 20% or stronger vinegar. Real science, real results. The recipe: 1 gallon of the 20 to 30% vinegar. Add about 2 tablespoons of plain dish soap. Any brand will do. The soap is just there as a surfactant to help the vinegar stick to the waxy leaves instead of running right off. Stir it gently, pour it into a clean garden sprayer, and apply it on a sunny day with no rain coming for at least 24 hours. Spray the weeds directly, soaking the leaves until the solution drips off them. Within an hour, the leaves curl. Within 4 hours, they brown. Within a day, they are crisp and dead-looking. The limitation of this method is honest, and I will give it to you straight. The vinegar burns the foliage, but it does not always reach all the way down to the root. The small weeds with shallow roots, the kind pushing up through your driveway cracks, usually die completely. But the larger established weeds with deep root systems, your dandelions, your dock, your thistle, your established crabgrass, will brown out on top and then slowly regrow from the surviving root within 2 or 3 weeks. For those, you plan to spray 2 or 3 times over the growing season, each time the new growth appears. This method is best for clearing flower beds, driveway cracks, walkway joints, and the small annual weeds. Genuinely useful, cheap, and honest. The second method is that same recipe with one thing added: salt. For the places where you want nothing at all growing back for the rest of the season, gravel driveways, fence lines, the gaps between flagstones, the cracks of a sidewalk, you add salt to the vinegar mix. The recipe: 1 gallon of the 20 to 30% vinegar, 2 tablespoons of dish soap, and 1 full cup of plain table salt or rock salt, mixed thoroughly until the salt is fully dissolved. The salt is what gives this mix its long-lasting kill. Here is the chemistry, plain. Salt is a desiccant, which means it draws the water out of the plant tissue and out of the surrounding soil both. Where the salt soaks into the ground, the soil becomes too salty for a plant to pull water up through its roots, and any seed that lands there cannot germinate. And the salt does not break down in the soil the way the vinegar does. It persists. On a typical sprayed driveway crack, you will get 6 to 12 weeks of nothing growing back, and with repeated application through the season, you can keep an area essentially bare for a full year. Now, 2 honest safety words about the salt method, because they matter a great deal. The first: salt does not stay where you put it. The rain washes it, the snowmelt carries it. On sloping ground, salt drift can damage the flower beds, the lawn edges, and the tree roots downhill from where you sprayed. I have seen a man salt a fence line and then a year later watch the maple tree 40 feet away turn yellow and start to die because the salt reached its roots through the groundwater. So use this method only where you want nothing growing for a long time, and only where the runoff cannot reach the plants you mean to keep. And the second: salted ground stays salted. If you ever decide later that you want to plant something where you sprayed, a hedge along that fence, a tree, even grass, the salt will keep it from growing for years. The only way to undo it is to wait it out through many seasons of rain, or to dig up and replace the soil. So choose your spots with care. But used on the right spots, driveway cracks, the gravel around the mailbox, fence lines you never intend to plant against. This is one of the most effective and cheapest weed methods there is. My grandfather used the very same recipe. Costs about $2 a gallon of mix, kills the small weeds within hours, and keeps the spot bare for months. The third method is the simplest of them all, boiling water straight from the kettle. And this one I want you to take seriously, even though it sounds too simple to be true. Plain boiling water poured directly on a weed kills it. No chemicals, no spraying, no drift, just hot water off your own stove. The chemistry is the same as the flame torch we will come to in a minute. The heat ruptures the plant cells, cooks the plant from the inside out. The water and the sap inside the cells boil and expand and burst the cell walls, and the plant goes from green to limp within hours and fully dead within a day. And the roots near the surface are cooked too, which is why this method actually does better than the vinegar at reaching the root on a small weed. The method: put your kettle on the stove, bring it to a hard rolling boil, carry it carefully out to the weed, and pour the boiling water slowly and directly onto the weed, soaking the foliage and the base of the plant. One full kettle handles about 3 or 4 good-sized weeds, or a stretch of driveway cracks about 2 feet long. And the safety word here? Plainly. Boiling water burns skin instantly and badly. Wear closed-toe boots. Wear long pants. Carry the kettle with 2 hands with the spout pointed away from your body, and pour slow so it does not splash back on you. Never pour on a windy day where the steam can blow back into your face, and never let a child near the kettle while you are using it outside. A spilled kettle of boiling water on a foot or a leg is a serious burn. Treat the kettle with the respect it is due. This method costs you nothing beyond the gas to boil the water. It works best on driveway cracks, walkway joints, gravel paths, and small isolated weeds you can aim at precisely. And it is non-selective. It kills anything green it touches. So do not go pouring boiling water on a weed out in your lawn unless you want a dead patch around it. The careful plant folks at the U.S. Botanic Garden confirm this as one of the most genuinely effective non-chemical weed killers for spot use. The Romans were doing this 2,000 years ago. The old folks knew. The fourth method is the propane flame torch, and this is the upgrade of the boiling water method, and one of the best tools any homestead can own. A handheld propane torch connected to a standard 20-pound propane tank with a long wand and an adjustable flame nozzle. You walk the area and pass the flame quickly over each weed, about a second, and that is all. You are not setting the weed on fire. You are giving it a brief, intense heat shock that ruptures its cells. The leaves wilt within minutes, brown by the next day, and are dead by the end of the week. The University of Minnesota Extension and the Iowa State Extension both confirm this as one of the most genuinely effective non-chemical weed methods, especially for the broadleaf annual weeds in driveway cracks, gravel paths, and around the edges of garden beds. A flame weeder costs about $40 to $100 at any hardware or farm store. Add a 20-pound propane tank, and you have everything you need, and a full tank handles many weeding sessions across a season. Now 5 honest safety words for the flame torch, because this one matters most of all the 6. The first, wear leather boots, long pants, gloves, and eye protection. That flame is well over 1,000 degrees at the nozzle. The second, check with your local fire department before the first use, because some areas have burn bans in the dry summer months, and a small flame in dry conditions can become a brush fire faster than you can step back. The third, have a bucket of water or a hose at the ready before you start, always. Never begin without water within arm's reach. The fourth, do not use a flame weeder near mulch, wood chips, dry leaves, fencing, or anything that can smolder. I have seen a man start a real fire in a pile of dry wood chip mulch with a flame weeder held 6 feet away because the embers carried on the wind. Mulch and dry plant matter can smolder for hours underground and burst into flame after you have packed up and gone inside. And the fifth, after you finish, walk the whole area again 10 or 20 minutes later and check for any smoldering spot. If you smell smoke or see any wisp of vapor, douse it. Better yet, soak the area lightly with water as your final step. Used with those cautions, the flame torch is the cleanest, fastest, most satisfying weed killer a homestead can own. No chemicals, no drift, no residue in the soil. The fence line that took you 3 hours to hand pull last summer takes 20 minutes with the flame torch this summer. The fifth method is the slow but unbeatable one. Newspaper or cardboard plus mulch. For the large patches you want to clear and keep clear, a section of yard you mean to turn into a garden bed, a problem stretch along a fence, a patch where invasive grass has taken over, no spray and no torch beats the simple business of smothering the weeds. The method: first mow or knock down the existing weeds. Then lay down 4 to 6 layers of plain newspaper or a layer of plain cardboard directly on the soil over the whole patch. Wet it thoroughly with the garden hose to weigh it down and start it breaking down. Then cover it with 3 to 4 inches of mulch, wood chips, straw, shredded leaves, anything organic. And that is all. You walk away. What happens next is slow, but it is complete. The newspaper or the cardboard blocks all the light from reaching the weeds below. Without sunlight, the photosynthesis stops, and within 2 to 3 weeks the weeds underneath die back. The paper and cardboard break down naturally over 4 to 6 months, enriching the soil as they go. And the mulch on top keeps the ground cool, holds in the moisture, and stops new weed seeds from ever germinating. For an area you can afford to walk away from for a full season, this method is the most thorough of the 6. It does not harm the soil, it improves it, adding organic matter as everything breaks down. It does not poison anything you might want to plant there later. It does not drift, and it does not splash on the cat. And it works on the very worst weed problems: established perennial grasses, thistle patches, even brambles. By the next spring, the area is bare, workable soil, ready for whatever you want to plant. This is the method Esther uses when she is turning a new piece of ground into a garden bed. It takes time, and it does not give you the quick satisfaction of the vinegar or the torch, but it gives you a better result than any of them on a hard problem patch. The sixth and final method is the one nobody wants to hear, and the one the old folks did most of all. After a rain, when the soil is soft, you walk the area and you pull the weeds out by hand. I know, the other methods all sound more interesting, but here is the honest truth about weed pulling that nobody wants to tell you. Pulling weeds by hand after the rain is the only method on this whole list that removes the entire weed, root and all, in a single pass. The vinegar burns the leaves, the torch wilts the foliage, the salt poisons the soil, but only your own 2 hands actually take the whole weed out of the ground and put it in the compost where it belongs. And the trick to it is the timing. You wait until after a good soaking rain or after a deep watering. The wet soil lets go of the root. A weed that would snap off at the surface in dry ground pulls out clean and whole in soft, wet ground. Get yourself a hand tool, a small cultivator, a hori-hori knife, a dandelion fork, and work your way down a row. On a good evening after a rain, you can clear 100 feet of garden bed in less than an hour, and every weed comes out, roots and all. The careful old folks never saw weed pulling as drudgery. They saw it as one of the small, honest rhythms of a healthy garden. 15 minutes a day, a few times a week, walking the rows, pulling what has come up, keeping the bed clean. Nothing ever truly gets out of hand if you walk the rows every few days. Weeds become a problem only when they are left for weeks until they go to seed. This is the method the whole human race used for 10,000 years before there was ever a chemical weed killer. It still works, it costs nothing, it improves the soil, and it gives you 15 minutes outdoors in the evening light, which is itself worth something. Now I want to take a moment because here is where it all matters. Look at what we have just walked through. 6 methods, each one for a different situation. For the small annual weeds in flower beds and walkway cracks, the vinegar and soap. For fence lines, gravel driveways, and the places you want bare for a full season, the vinegar with salt added. For an isolated weed in a driveway crack when you have the kettle already on the stove, the boiling water. For larger areas of small weeds in driveways, paths, and around the garden edges, the flame torch. For turning a problem patch into clear ground over a season, the newspaper and mulch. And for the small daily upkeep of a clean bed, your own hands after the rain. Not one of these methods needs a commercial herbicide. Not one of them needs a glyphosate bottle. Not one of them needs a soil sterilizer that poisons your ground for years. Every one of them costs almost nothing. Pantry vinegar, table salt, water from the kettle, a $40 flame torch that lasts a lifetime, free newspaper and cardboard, and your own 2 hands. The hardware store will sell you a bottle of glyphosate that does the same job as the vinegar. It will sell you a bottle of long residual soil sterilizer for $45 that does the same job as the salt and contaminates your soil for a year or more besides, and can kill the tree whose roots run under the spot you sprayed. And it will sell you another bottle next spring when the weeds come back, every single year. $200 a year easy on the bottles. There is no money in teaching folks that the answer is a gallon of vinegar, a cup of salt, a kettle on the stove, and a willingness to pull a few weeds after the rain. There is a great deal of money in selling $16 bottles of chemical herbicide to every household twice a year. So the hardware store stocks the bottles, and the commercials run, and a whole country sprays Roundup on their driveway cracks every spring, when the answer was in their kitchen and their kettle the whole time. You can be one of the ones who remembers the old way. So here is what I want you to do this week. Look hard at the weed problem you actually have. Be specific about it. Where is it? What kind of weeds? How big and how bad? For the small weeds in flower beds and walkway cracks, buy a gallon of 30% horticultural vinegar at the hardware store. Add 2 tablespoons of dish soap and spray them on the next sunny day. $18 all told, and the jug lasts a year. For the fence lines and gravel driveways you want bare for the season, the same recipe, plus a cup of salt per gallon. And pick your spots with care where the salt cannot reach what you want to keep. For 1 or 2 weeds in the driveway crack, boil the kettle, carry it careful, pour it slow. For the larger driveway and path areas, invest in a $40 propane flame torch and a tank, and use it with all the care I gave you, and you will have it for the rest of your life. For a problem patch you want to turn into clean ground, lay down the newspaper or cardboard, soak it, cover it with 3 inches of mulch, and walk away for a season. And for the daily upkeep of your beds and your edges, walk them after the next rain with a hand tool and pull what has come up while the ground is soft. 15 minutes, a few times a week, forever. Tell me down in the comments, what is the worst weed problem on your property right now, and what part of the country are you in? And if your grandmother or your grandfather had an old weed-killing trick we did not cover here, share it, because those little family methods are exactly the kind of knowledge that gets lost when nobody writes it down. I read every single one. Next time, since we have been speaking of keeping the whole place clean and well tended, I'm going to show you the old way my people sharpen a knife and an axe with a stone and a strop. The angle, the pressure, the small daily habit that keeps your kitchen knives and your work tools sharp for a lifetime instead of going dull in 6 months. It is the natural next step after today. Until then, pour the vinegar, boil the kettle, light the torch, lay the cardboard, and remember, that the cheapest weed killer in all the world is the one already sitting in your kitchen. That is how the old folks did it, and that is how it is still done on any farm or homestead that remembers.